Since 2003, this is The Sports Source. With your host, John Pennington.
The Sports Source is presented by Junk Be Gone, Pipe Wrench, and the Garza Law Firm.
The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome in to the Junk Be Gone Studios and the Sports Source. Season 22, we got a little bit of a new look, and we're grappling with some things today, so if there are little glitches here and there, please forgive. It's what happens when you change everything. So we've got a new look, we got a new sound, but we got the same guys that you've watched for many a year. We're going to break down Tennessee's huge win, 69-3 over Chattanooga. Boy, if you want a good opener, that's about as good as it can get. If you schedule a tomato can, the job is to crush it. And Tennessee crushed it, and they crushed it early. So we'll dig into that. We'll even ask the big question, and we'll ask it to you as well with our poll question. Should Tennessee have gone with Nico last year? That'll be one we discuss. We'll talk about a lot of stuff. We'll even get you ready for an NC State. Let's just dive right in. First segment of our program brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. Junk removal, dumpster rentals, small demolition jobs, Junk Be Gone does it all. They're professional, environmentally friendly, and affordable. I have used them many times, as I've told you over the years, and that's because I'm somewhere between a pack rat and a full-on hoarder. Junk Be Gone helps you clear out your house. It helps you get rid of that shed in the backyard. It helps if you've got an old boat that's falling apart, they get rid of that. You name it, they can do it. Check them out online, junkbegone.biz. All right, let's welcome in the first wave of panelists. We have four more people sitting off set right now, but we start with Jimmy Himes right there. Jimmy, thank you.
Thank you.
Will Overstreet, former Vol player right there.
Good
Will.
to be here.
Another former Vol right here, Marlon Walls. Marlon, thanks for being back with us.
Man, excited.
And right there, Bob Hodge, back for season 22. You've been here for all of them.
Yeah, I'm still just 40.
There you go. I'm now older than you. 69-3, Tennessee just rips Chattanooga up one side, down the other. They rolled up yards, points, while almost blanking their FCS guests. It was a far better performance than the last time we saw Tennessee go out and beat an FCS foe. That was 30-13, and it was more of a struggle than even the score suggested last year. Let's take a look at the stats. I'll let you see that as we talk a little bit here. It was Tennessee's most points under Josh Heupel. And get this, the Vols, in 2021, his first year, they scored 60 points twice. In 2022, they scored 60 points 4 times. Last year, they did not score 60 points a single time. In fact, they only went over 50 once last year. And now, well, it's almost like everything's kind of back to normal. Wonder what changed. My biggest takeaway from yesterday's game, as we're going to throw it out to these guys, my biggest takeaway can be summed up in 3 words. And I forgot them. Ball placement, and processing. To me, I think that could be the 3 words that shape this season. Will Overstreet, what was your biggest takeaway from yesterday's game?
I mean, Nico's here, and that was a heck of a game. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. You go 10 for 10, your first 10 passes, and you're all over the field. You're on target. You're hitting people in stride. You're hitting them in the right places. You're going attack at the middle of the field. All of a sudden, had more plays to it than it probably did all last year. So I just look at this and go, this offense looks like it's taken its step back up. Obviously, you're going up against the tomato can, as John rightly referenced, but you did what you had to do, and on air, you were completing things like you were supposed to. Last year, you were missing big passes, even when it was against on-air opponents, basically. So I think in this game, you take away that the offense looks like it's stepped back up to 22 levels, and that's where you're thinking this offense is going to be this year.
I tell you, when they start a drive successfully with early plays, they're electrifying because they had 26 first down snaps in the first half and gained 333 yards. Think about that. That's a lot. And about 5 of them were gains of over 30 yards.
Compare that to last year.
Correct. Now, and then the 2 drives late where Josh Heupel was complaining about what they did late, it's because they didn't get off to a good start in those drives. But those first down plays were terrific what they did. And then one of them was like 26 yards, 33 yards touchdown. So they're so efficient. And when they start out a drive and they're efficient and they get it rolling, the momentum, they are hard to stop.
Biggest takeaway?
The electricity's back. The electricity's back. You can see it. You can also pay attention. If you pay attention to the defense, what I saw yesterday, they're excited as well. They understand that on the other side we're going to score points. And I would tell you, as a former defensive guy, when you know that the offense can score, you get a little bit more excited about your play as well. So I would say the electricity's back. We should be excited. The offense is going to roll. And I saw that from the guys yesterday.
Bob?
When you play the tomato can early, and Tennessee plays tomato cans early, but you look as clean as Tennessee did, I mean, one of the stats I think is really impressive, 6 penalties. Josh Heupel's teams have a reputation of being penalized quite a bit, and you were playing, as Jimmy said on the radio last night, about 120 guys seemed like we're playing, but yet you only had 6 penalties. I thought that was impressive. I thought it was impressive how well everything looked, and yes, it was a tomato can opponent, but you looked really, really good for a season opener where in the past you haven't looked that good against the inferior opponent in that first game.
The offense with Joe Milton running it looked clunky. It always looked clunky, and people can go back. We said it even after the Orange Bowl. You and I beat the drum that, yes, he was MVP. Yes, they got some good numbers. Look at all the 3 and outs they had, except for 2 deep balls that they hit. When he didn't hit the deep balls, and he didn't hit them often, that offense was all run game. And yesterday with Nico out there, instead of seeing passes here, receivers having to reach back to their hip pocket, instead of seeing guys have to reach up, trying to get it where it's coming in him at 150 miles an hour, he's hitting them in stride. That's going to lead to yards after catch. That's going to bring back those big plays that we talked about all off season. You went from 40 plays, pass plays of 30 or more yards 2 years ago to 18 last year. I think you're going to be back on pace for 40 this year. I don't know if you're going to hit 40, but you're back on that pace. I don't think you're going to be struggling again. One of the guys, I know you were impressed by, one of the guys who caught some of those passes, Bob.
Oh, I thought Dante Thornton looked like a different guy yesterday. Now, once again, it's Chattanooga. You're going to get open.
Yeah.
But Dante Thornton caught the ball very well away from his body. There was a couple of passes to him that were high. He went up and got them. Now, last year you don't catch them with Joe because if you put your hands up, you got burn marks as it goes through your fingers. But I thought Dante Thornton yesterday looked like he might be the guy that we were sitting here last year thinking he's going to be.
Well, I said it earlier, like if you go back to last show, like if we can get him going, Dante Thornton, who is your flyer, the guy that can get down the field, he can catch the ball in stride and go score, this offense is going to be electric. And yesterday showed that he's super excited. And I think also, man, like when you're a receiver in that room and you know you got a guy that can get you the ball and it's going to hit you where you're supposed to hit you, it motivates you to get open. It motivates you to be on point and crisp with your route so that you know, I know if I get open, ball's coming to me. So that's a big deal.
After the game, Jason Swain of All Network was talking to Thornton, and he asked him what was different today about last year. And he said, the mental game. The mental game is different. I'm not stressed over it. We said it all summer. If there's somebody that you want to take that Jalen Hyatt leap who stinks one year and you don't see it turning around, but boom, where did that come from? You need it to be Dante Thornton. It's one game against a team that really couldn't cover him, but it looks like he's on that path. And to hear him say the mental game is what's better, I think that ties into a lot of the times you see these transfers come in and it's year 2 that is better than year 1.
Yeah, John, with Thornton now, he did start his career at Tennessee out of position. He's not a slot receiver, and they moved him out to wide out, and then when he started to click, catches a touchdown pass, he gets hurt. But when you look at, I think he was embarrassed by what happened last year, and I think it motivated him. I think Jalen Hyatt was embarrassed when he got benched the year before because he was dropping passes, and it motivated him. I see some similarities there. The other thing, too, Tennessee had 165 yards after catch yesterday.
Which gets back to also
hitting them in stride.
There you go. The ball placement. Any other big takeaways from yesterday?
The thing that was really looking good for me in the game was the defensive line. When they were in there together, it looked like they were all on a string. No, everybody was at the same level, going the same direction, always resetting the offensive line, and you just didn't see anything that looked like it got uneven. And so for having so many guys rotate in and they all looked the same, that was an impressive part of the game that I noticed, and I was like, that looks like a different level this year that we've had.
I was going to say Dylan Sampson. I was going to mention him. Don't want to get through this because he had a great day. 150 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, again, he's running against let's see how it looks when they're running him up the middle time and time and again against an Oklahoma or an Alabama. but he showed yesterday that I think he's going to be a good lead back. Whether he can be a workhorse, I don't know. They spread the carries around yesterday because they could. I mean, everybody was getting touches yesterday. Right. We'll see how that works moving forward, but I thought he had a really nice start to his season. Well, that was the other thing. And in the pregame show on Saturday, I kind of told Paige Dower, no, you're not going to be able to tell much about these receivers. Nico threw passes to 10 different people, and he didn't play in the second half. To me, it's kind of incredible that you had 10 different guys that could get on the field and catch a pass in the first half. So I think maybe I was a little bit wrong about that. And yes, back to the tomato can, but still, you had 10 guys catching passes in the first half of that ball game. It was interesting. You saw, there was talk of Holden Stays. There was talk of Miles Kitzelman, the other transfer from Alabama, one transfer from Notre Dame. But it was Ethan Davis who had 2 catches and the touchdown, who got the start at tight end. I want to see where that develops. That's one where I wonder how much of that was Chattanooga and how much of that is we're going to see some tight ends that can actually do some damage. How much is it a quarterback that's going to look at the tight end? There you go. That's part of it as well. All right. Very good. And I tell you what, we didn't put this up. Let's go ahead and show it to you here. It was a record-setting home debut for Nico Iamaleava. 314 yards. He threw for more yards and a half than any quarterback in Tennessee history. Not bad for your first home game at Neyland Stadium. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about the best player, the worst decision. Was there a bad decision? The worst decision, and the biggest disappointment. Was there a disappointment? Will won't like what I say, I bet. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. If you have a building project, big, small, personal, business-related, whatever it is, start it at A.G. Hines Company. They helped me build the set that we're on right now, and they helped me build all the sets that we debuted on the Sports Source Saturday kickoff yesterday. Be sure to check that out next Saturday at 11 a.m., regardless of what your grid guide says. Start your next project at A.G. Hines Company, aghines.com to learn more. They've been around for more than 100 years. Their website is a little bit newer than that, aghines.com. All right. Let's welcome in the next 2 members of our panel right here. Chuck Cavaleras, back for his 22nd year with us. You've been here since the start. Josh, I think you were 6 years old when we launched. Josh Ward from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and put up our poll question, all right? And this is brought to you by Hearthside Bank. And like Hearthside Bank, our poll question is always within reach. All you got to do is go to sportsource.tv/polls or click the QR code. And the question today, would UT have been better off starting Iamaleava last year? Your answers, your possible options, no, Joe was plenty good. No, Joe earned the job. Yes, we would have won more games. Those are the 3. And right now, the leader for people going to the website is Joe earned the job. So I'll be interested, and we're going to discuss that topic a little bit later in this show. But go ahead, click it, let us know your answer. Should Nico have been given the job last year? All right. We got 3 topics in this segment, and I'll let you guys go wherever you want. We don't all have to have a different answer here, so if we all agree on one, we all agree on one. It saves time. We move on. Question number 1. Best player on the field yesterday? Josh Ward.
I'm going to go with Nico. There are a lot of players that put up big numbers, had a great day, but I think like if we look at Dante Thornton, he had a better day probably because of what Nico was able to do to help him. So Dylan Sampson I would consider. Some line of scrimmage guys like Tyree West I would consider, but that matchup advantage that is so obvious. I'll go back to Nico. He was perfect for a while to start the game.
Everybody I think would say Nico, and I agree with that. But Dylan Sampson, I mean, how many times have you handed the ball off to him at the start? I think he ended up, what did I have it for? It was like 12 carries for over 134 yards. So there's been all the talk, is he going to be able to, he showed that he's capable of doing it against UTC.
Right, yeah.
But at least that part was encouraging, and then it seemed like Tennessee brought in a lot of running backs that looked like they had something to offer. So, I mean, I think that whole position group, to me, was more impressive than I really expected.
Okay.
I got to go with Nico. And one of the things that Josh Heupel said afterward I thought was interesting was that Chattanooga came out and showed a completely different alignment than what they expected, and Nico handled it.
Yeah.
He read it. He saw it. He starts 10 for 10. He starts 15 of 16. He starts 19 of 22. That's pretty impressive. So it's hard to go against Nico. There were other great players, but I thought he was the best.
Okay. Bobby,
Nico.
Okay. let's talk about the next one. Worst decision in the game. Now, we're going to do this every week. It could be Tennessee. It could be the other team. It could be coach, player, whatever you want to do. Worst decision. Was there a bad decision in yesterday's game?
Yes, I've got one, but it's my biggest disappointment. But I thought there was a biggest disappointment. I think you know what that's.
Do you want to use this as biggest disappointment or worst decision?
Well, worst decision goes to Chattanooga's coach.
Okay.
You had fourth at about 1.5 yards up somewhere around the 45-yard line. You're already down 24-0, and you punt. Really? I mean, was it going to make a difference? They're going to score in 2 minutes.
It would have been 76-3, Bob.
There you go. And that's probably what he was sitting there saying in the headset. But I thought, go ahead, give your guys a chance to do something, maybe have a little bit of fun, because they were going to score on you again just as soon as they touched the ball, which they did. So that was a bad coaching decision on my part, on his part.
Are there any other bad decisions?
Well, I thought UTC tried to offensively just do what UTC does. I would have looked for a little bit more RPO action. I would have tried to do something a little bit different other than just trying to be, this is who we are, what we do. We're not going to use the helmet to, player communication because it's really not able for us to use in our division. So it's just like some of those, you just think you could have tried a little bit more than what you did.
Here's the worst decision. The worst decision, and they all do it. They all do it because they want the money. They don't care about their players. They want the money. The worst decision is taking that game.
Yep.
Coming up here to be slaughtered. And I heard somebody call in and say, isn't it wonderful on your show today? Tim Irwin was saying, well, it's great that we can keep money within the university system. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's not the job. No. Who cares? I don't care about Chattanooga's players, and obviously Chattanooga's coaches don't either.
Care about
the administration doesn't. I don't see it. We talk about theyose guys get the chance to come into Neyland Stadium. Yes, and remember having their heads taken off. I don't understand the big draw of, hey, when I was in college, I got clipped by Alabama, I got killed at Auburn, I got destroyed at Tennessee. I just think that's the worst decision.
Did you see how much it was?
The worst decision is having those games.
Was it $550,000? That's what I read. And if that's all Chattanooga got, they got shortchanged.
That'll barely cover their hospital bills.
Exactly.
Right. Who or what was the biggest disappointment? Okay.
Well, watching Tennessee run out in that crappy gray. I mean, it's
Home
your
opener.
first game of the season, and you're sitting there, and you had a gray uniform, which it isn't one of your colors, and it's an ugly gray uniform.
And it's 150 degrees out, and you're designed to wear
I
dark.
just lose that stuff. Make it smoky black, burned in the trash cans out behind the football.
So, a UT alum texted me yesterday and said, take the letters off the helmets and tell me who's playing.
Yeah.
Like, if I
It
didn't
looked
have
like, to me, it looked like Cleveland Browns jerseys or something. One thing real quick.
Yeah.
If you're Chattanooga, you're getting beat soundly. I mean, you got really nothing going on. You finally get an interception, right? You get a 71-yard return. The guy gets chased down from behind. You can't get anything going offensively, and then you miss the field goal. I mean, not being able to
So that would be their disappointment.
That would be their biggest disappointment.
Mine was, I'm sorry.
No, go.
I'm going to sound like a coach. I probably need to watch the film. James Pierce was a no-show, I thought.
That was my biggest disappointment. 24 dropbacks for Chattanooga. You had one sack as a team.
Yeah.
James Pierce, number one player in college football, wasn't on the stat sheet.
No, he wasn't. And I get the scheme. I know they were throwing it quick, and I probably triple-teamed him a lot.
Right.
But he just didn't show up, other than he kind of got in on the forced fumble. But that was about it. I didn't see him making plays. And, again, I don't know how many snaps he played either. But I thought he was a no-show.
Yeah, I'm reaching on purpose, but you kind of have to do in this kind of game, not shutting them out, allowing points. I'm sure Tim Banks wanted to shut out when you're playing Chattanooga.
Well, I mean,
You had somebody get back to the defensive line. You told me you had people asking if James.
I had multiple texts and they weren't joking. Did James Pierce not play, or why didn't James Pierce play?
Yeah, I think that if anybody says, well,
and he
they weren't a
started.
disappointment. That's the definition. Did he play?
Yeah.
And
all we've heard all off season was this defensive line is going to get
best
after
in the
everybody.
country, yeah.
Okay, well, this doesn't mean they stink. This is a hard grade here, 69-3 victory. But if the word is disappointment, and all we've heard is they're the best in college football, you get one sack, and you're the best player in college football doesn't even appear on the stat sheet. Disappointment.
And one little disappointment to me would have been Brew McCoy didn't get a touchdown pass. I'd like
Had a
to
nice
at
big
least
game
see-
though. Had a really good.
He had a
return.
really good game, but
Yeah.
I'd like to see Brew get that touchdown.
Yeah,
Can
he
we
had
go
a
back
nice
to the
return.
uniforms again?
No, we're done. All right, when we come back, VFL Mike Stoll asks our other 4 VFLs how much they can take from a game against an FCS foe. And when I say the other 4 VFLs, that means there's 2 more that you haven't seen yet. They're coming up next on the Sports Source. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. At some point, fall is bound to arrive. It won't be 95 degrees forever. At least I hope not. And when the colors start to change, secure yourself a cabin in the Smokies through Parkside Cabin Rentals. Free parking in downtown Gatlinburg when you rent through them. All kinds of entertainment and amenities in every single cabin. And you can go pick your layout, whether it's for you and one other, whether it's for you yourself, whether it's for you and 20 others. Literally, they have cabins for every type group you could want. Check them all out at ParksideCabinRentals.com. All right, let's welcome in the next 2 members of our panel. VFL Daniel Hood is back with us right there.
Let's go.
VFL Sterling Hinton right there.
Hey.
Congratulations on a nice debut yesterday over at Neyland Stadium.
It was awesome, man. I'm glad to be a part of it, brother.
All right. I want to let another VFL, former Vol captain Mike Stoll, get in here. We're doing the Stoll train.
Hey, John, the Stoll train's leaving the station for 2024, and Tennessee scores 69 points on Chattanooga. Nico looked really, really sharp. Great decisions. He gets rid of the ball quickly, and he's got some pretty good receivers to throw the ball to. I did have a little bit of concern for the offense and defensive line. When Tennessee's playing Chattanooga, the guys they're playing across from in Chattanooga, they're never being recruited by Tennessee. So if I'm in that game, my goal is to put that guy on his back every single time because I should. I didn't see that a lot. I'm not saying it was terrible. I'm not saying it was a poor performance, but I would like to see a little bit more nastiness from those guys up front. My takeaway, they're going to score a lot of points this year. My question to the VFLs, how much do you read into this game, and how much do you read from a lopsided score like this?
All right, guys, there's the question. I want to hear your answers. Sterling, Daniel, since you're new to the set right now, I'll let you guys go first. How much can you take from a game against an FCS foe?
Well, I'll go first. You did what you're supposed to do. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. We are Tennessee, and they're on the schedule. We won in dominant fashion. And what I like about these type games, you get a lot of people on the field. A lot of guys got some experience yesterday. Get on that field yesterday and got a chance to play and know what it's like to cross the line. And that's valuable down into the meat of the schedule. So you got people that crossed the line, you played well, you did what you're supposed to do, now it's on to the next.
Daniel, how much can you take?
Yeah, I think you can take a lot from it. And my favorite thing with these games is you finally got to hit somebody that's not in an orange or white jersey, and you get to celebrate, right?
Or gray.
Well, yeah, we're gray.
But black or pink. Go ahead.
We did get to see the funny video of Boo Carter going live in the locker room. You got to see the guys celebrate. Even Coach Heupel was like, "Come on, man, celebrate with your team." But you got to see the passion and energy that Heupel's really created with this program. Yeah. And as for how good the players are, you can see talent, right? Like everyone's talked about Nico. You can see his timing on the balls. We can see his deep ball accuracy and those type of things. You can see that Chattanooga was terrified of the defensive line, how they were trying to chop block him every single play to where the defensive line had to pull back. There's little things like that, but the biggest thing, you got out healthy. So
yes.
What do you learn? I don't think you learned that much. I mean, I think you learned
enough of the Joy Boys.
I think you learned as much as you play in the 7-on-7 tournament or flag football game, right? Like the accuracy, the quarterback, the skill position kind of things. You don't know much about your defense and offensive line at this point going up against that. I saw some good things, but you're not going up against the talent level that you say, and what's the measuring stick that I'm going to go against, right? So you're still looking at that saying, okay, there's some good things. There's some signs in there, but it's not enough to say, hey, how am I going to play against Georgia and Alabama or any of these guys like that? You're looking at this and you're pulling at things, and the only way you learn something about it in this kind of game is if your team comes out and stinks it up and or plays at that level. Then you learn a lot of bad things and things you don't trust anymore. But other than that, not much.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is you get to check a box. We checked the box. You dominated both sides of the ball. Defensive line, we need to get there a little bit more, but we dominated. I would like to see some more turnovers than we saw yesterday. But you check a box. You say, hey, we did it. We did what we were supposed to do. We put the points up. Offense look electric. Defense is flying around. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Are you going to let these guys be negative, Sterling?
I mean, I don't want. Do I get a chance to?
Yes.
Thank you. My thing is this. Let's do that because what is we had a pregame conversation about Florida. We had to know now. We got to get a conversation here inside the game about what we did yesterday. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. We learned a lot yesterday. We learned how the players came to play. We did not stink it up. We self-motivated ourselves to do what we wanted to do, and we did. Imposed our will on. Now that was Chattanooga. You can never say what are we going to do against Alabama and Georgia. Well, until you play them, you don't know.
Don't have a clue.
You get a better idea after you play NC State and Oklahoma, though, than you do Chattanooga.
Let's save that for next week's show.
If you score 40 points in Oklahoma, I got a really good feeling you can score points against Georgia and Alabama.
That conversation comes. I can't wait, man. You got me excited now, John P. Yeah, baby.
There we go.
There's still a lot of schematics you can see too. Like this is the first time I saw the Tennessee defensive line on a run game playing natural TE games to fit back in to help with an inside zone. So your defensive ends read a defensive tackle going vertical for tackle for loss, defensive end came under. We hadn't seen that in the first game of the season this year.
Hey, I would throw out too, like Brew looked more explosive. He looked more explosive. From what we knew before he got injured, he was a big possession guy. He's a blocker. He can get the deep ball down the field. He coming across the middle. Yesterday it looked like they was throwing some quicks to him, and he could make a guy miss and get vertical, which if he can continue to do that, that's huge.
I think the
same thing you can learn in 7-on-7 in the flag football game, right?
And what I'm about to say is true.
We made a field goal.
Nico's accuracy you can also take from it, but you're right.
7-on-7
You could learn
flag
that.
football. You can learn all
But
those things.
I do think that is something that you can take away from that because we saw Joe Milton against FCS opponents. And
like I said, everything I can learn in the 7-on-7 or flag football game, I can learn from this game.
He does
everything that's not that is not
he does it great on the curve.
Plus, plus the kicker. You got your kicker question answered yesterday.
When we come back, it's our poll question for the day. So let's all weigh in on that next. Would UT have been better off with Iamaleava as your quarterback last year? Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Whether you need a one-time spraying for your home or office, a specialty treatment like mosquitoes or termites, or regularly scheduled preventative maintenance visits, which I would recommend, Southeast Termite and Pest Control is the name to remember when it comes to pest control all across East Tennessee. Southeast Termite and Pest Control. All right, let's go ahead and remind you of the poll question. Let's see where that thing stands. All right, we've had more people who've shifted in and said, yes, we would have won more games with Nico, but the leader in the clubhouse is still no, Joe earned the job. Not many people saying Joe was plenty good, but a lot of people saying he earned the job. It should have been his. Okay, so I want to ask these guys whether or not he should have had the job. Bob, we were talking on the phone yesterday, and I made the comment that it looks back to normal. Granted, it's Chattanooga, but it looked back to normal. Same thing against Iowa. The clunkiness was gone. If you had skipped 2023, I said to you, and just went, it was Hendon Hooker's last game, and then you saw that game yesterday, you would say, never missed a beat. But they did miss a beat, and you said, well, I wonder if they're going to regret sticking with Joe Milton. So I'll let you answer this question first. Should they have gone to Nico last year?
I would have gone to Nico some last year. I don't know if it would have been a permanent Joe, you're done, you're gone, you're finished. Would it have improved their record? I think the one game that a better quarterback would have helped Tennessee in was the Florida game last year. That was the game that you lost. That you walked into a buzzsaw at Missouri.
Yeah.
You know, Alabama, maybe in the second half, somebody a little bit better helps you, but Alabama really got it cranking, this and that. So he might improve you a little bit. But then I also think to the experience, you know, when you go to Charlotte next week and then you go to Oklahoma in 2 weeks after that, he would have already done that. It's not going to be a big new thing. So, yeah, I think you would have been better off playing Nico. I don't know if that meant bench Joe and he doesn't play anymore.
But just play him
But
more.
you should have played him.
Okay. Former quarterback filling in.
It's challenging because Nico's an exceptional talent. He's an exceptional talent. But the speed of high school to the SEC is totally different. It's totally different. It's night and day. There's no way in the world any high school state championship could even replicate the speed of the game in the SEC. Joe had a lot of drops last year. I mean, we expected a breakout season from Ramel Keaton, who made the Raiders team this year, but he had a lot of drops. And sometimes as a young quarterback, they can take away from your rhythm in the game. And Nico had a lot of rhythm yesterday. And so I'm excited for the future, but I still say Joe playing last year was the right thing to do.
John, lock me in for a maybe on this one.
No. Cavaliers is over there. You can't Cavaliers in.
So I'm going to say no for a few reasons. The one game that I would point to is if you're trying to figure out does it change the record, I wonder maybe that Florida game because it was closer.
Would have been early in the season, though, for him. Yeah.
That's my hesitation. Would have been early in the season. You wouldn't have had Cooper Mays for a true freshman quarterback going on the road. Remember, Joe gets hit on a play with pressure through the middle. That still happens, right, with Nico, assuming your plans are the same. Joe hit some balls down the field that were not caught in that game. So I can't say yes to Georgia. I can't say yes to Missouri when they lose by 29 points. So that plus, if you bench a senior who's been the guy during the offseason for a freshman, do you lose the senior? How does that affect the locker room? So I'll say no.
I'm going to say no also. I do think that Florida was the best chance to win if Nico had been the quarterback. But I also counter that with not having Cooper Mays. The other part of that is, do I think the offense overall would have been more efficient with Nico? I do. I don't think that has many 3-and-outs. He is a better fit for this offense than was Joe Milton. But also, I think Milton had the respect of his teammates in the locker room. And if you had benched Joe Milton, you might have lost some of those players in the locker room.
I'll give you another reason that I wouldn't have done it, and I said it last year. He still looks like a skinny guy, but he's put on weight. Last year he was a stick. I don't know that I would have felt good putting him in there and letting him take a shot up the middle like Milton did against Florida.
The offensive line was hurt at all 5 spots last year.
So is that
Nico
what
stay healthy? I don't know.
Do you want to put a little guy back there last year when the quarterback's taking some shots?
Well, and I would have played Nico more.
Okay. Yeah.
I think Tennessee was intentional about redshirting him. But who among us thinks that Nico's going to be here to play a redshirt senior season?
Right. It was kind of wasted.
He's going to be out of here. So I'd have played him more.
Yeah, I think if Bob's saying, and I think you are, use him more but don't necessarily make him the starter, I agree with that.
Yes.
I would
have liked to have seen him in the second quarter and the third quarter of some games when the game still kind of mattered a little bit, just to let him have that experience under his belt. You know, because we'll learn a little bit more next week, and then in 2 weeks in Oklahoma, I think you'll learn a lot then.
Yeah, we'll know more then. All right. When we come back, if UT could replicate one guy's performance for all 12 games this year, would they replicate Dylan Sampson's or Dante Thornton's? Let's discuss that next. Going back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Fall is almost here, and that means it's time to start thinking about next boating season. Do you want a bass boat? Does your wife want a pontoon? Do your kids want a boat they can ski behind? Get to Madisonville Marine. Joe Special and his team can help break it down for you. They've got all those different types of boats under one roof. That makes them different than all the other boat dealers. They got a bigger selection and different types of boats, and then also they just want to put you in the right boat for you. It's not, okay, just get them out of here, sell them a boat. It's finding the right boat for you. So they're going to talk to you and figure out which boat does the most things for all the people in your family. Madisonville Marine's a very special place. That's why I always say there's no better place to buy a boat. All right, let's put up a stat here. This is Dylan Sampson's day yesterday. 12 rushes, 124 yards, 10 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. He also had 3 catches for 29 yards yesterday. They used him a little bit more in the past game, 10 yards per catch. Dante Thornton, 3 catches, 105 yards. He averaged 35 yards a catch, 2 touchdowns on the day. If Josh Heupel could replicate one of those, not both, but you could pick one of them, and you can replicate that for the next 11 games, whose performance are you replicating?
Dylan Sampson's.
Okay.
Hands down. This offense is, even though it has the splashy numbers, is really a run game offense, right? When they run, I think it was the stat was the 150, 160 yards, we're going to win. And so when you look at that and you just go, who do I want to be consistently? If I have a running back that's getting 10 yards a carry, 120-something yards, I've dominated that line of scrimmage. A wide receiver that has 3 catches and 2 touchdowns for 105 yards, well, those could be your only big plays. But if you're doing that with a running back consistently, you've dominated and had a pretty good day.
Okay. All right.
Just for the sake of TV, honestly, I would go
No,
Samson.
don't do that.
I would go
don't
Samson.
do that because he fell right into my trap. Go ahead, fall into it as well.
I would go Samson, but here's what I would say. If you think about the magical year we had, where we caught lightning in the bottle, the biggest game, the highlight I still see on social media and everywhere else from the Tennessee program is Jalen Hyatt catching 5 touchdowns, right, and dominating those guys down the field. What did we see Dante Thornton do yesterday? He's beating them consistently down the field. So what I would say is, run game wise, we're not trying to kill you with the run game. It's just enough to keep you honest on defense. But if you got Dante Thornton, who's burning you down the field every game, he's going to get you at least 2 touchdowns. That's a big deal for our offense.
I would say, look, my hope was that both of you would say Dylan Sampson.
Didn't fall into it.
Yeah, you didn't fall into the trap. But here's the reason. Most people look at that and they go, well, you can 150 yards versus 100, 3 touchdowns versus 2. What are you, crazy? You take that one. I take Dante Thornton, and here's why. They ran the ball just fine last year. They led the SEC. You ran the ball better than Alabama, better than Georgia, better than anyone in the league last year. 200 yards per game on the ground last year. And your offense didn't look good. Why? What dropped off from 2022 and 2021? The big plays disappeared. The big play in the passing game. I think your run game, with this offense, I think your run game is pretty much always going to be there. I think having the deep ball makes you diversified and much more dangerous. And I think you've got a much better chance of winning 10, 11 games when you've got a run game and a guaranteed deep ball as opposed to run game and not a guaranteed deep ball. So I would take the deep ball.
But if I had that Dylan Sampson stats against Georgia or Alabama, I've won. Right? And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think we ran it successfully like that against the top defensive line.
Not against Georgia. No.
So I'm saying,
run
if you
against
take
Georgia.
that and you say, my defensive line, I'm going to get that with their defensive line, I feel like you've already won that game pretty much.
I think you're going to be. Oh, go ahead.
I would say this too, though. Like you got to keep in mind, Nico's a natural runner. So we're going to run the ball, whether that be Sampson going for 150 or you got Nico that pick off, 60 yards a game or something like that. We're going to rush the ball. What we did not have, and that took the electricity away from, that's that word again, the electricity away from our offense, which we know is an offensive game for us, is the deep ball down the field. And if we can get Dante Thornton, a guy that had problems with drops last year and looked like he was not confident that scoring 2 touchdowns a game, it's going to be hard to stop us.
Because I think Dylan Sampson is going to get numbers. I don't think you have to guarantee. I think his numbers are going to be really good. I don't know about Dante Thornton. That's why I would take that as the guarantee. Now, Kevin Simon, I've put up the numbers, 150 yards, what it is, yards per rush. Kevin Simon, who was over there, he was on our pregame show and will be Saturday kickoff, 11 a.m., WAT. He's a big believer that the run game, those numbers are just jacked up in the back ends of wins. That it's the deep ball that makes the difference. It's the run game that salts it away. I don't know that I go all that direction. I'm not 100% in on that. But last year made me feel like it's a lot closer to the truth. Because the thing that changed last year, your deep ball went away, your offense went away.
Don't disagree. We need the deep ball, right? There's no doubt.
No, you disagree. If you're going Dylan Sampson.
But I'm saying, if I can get a running back to get that against Alabama or Georgia, I like my chances a whole lot better that I've won that game.
That's why this was a great question, was it not?
It was a great question.
There you go. All right.
Very
good. When we come back, let's take a look at the Vols' future foes and how they did in their openers. And will Billy Napier actually make it to Knoxville with the Florida Gators? Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Fall nearly here. That means a wet, rainy winter is right behind it. Is your roof ready for it? How old is your roof? You know, the East Tennessee weather, this climate, can do a lot of damage to a roof. It can prematurely age a roof. What you need to do before winter gets here and you find yourself with leaks in your attic, you need to have Daniel Hood and his team come out and do a free inspection. Their goal is to absolutely get you a new roof. It's also to absolutely get your insurance company to pay for it. DanielHoodRoofing.com to learn more. All right, let's see how the poll wound up. If we can get up here, it looks like it got a little bit closer, but the winner still, Joe earned the job. Joe deserved it. And then, of course, we'd have won more, came in second. Boy, Very few of you said Joe was plenty good. But I'm a little surprised. I thought this would go Nico in terms of this poll question. So that's why we do it. Thanks for doing it. And we thanks Hearthside Bank for bringing you the poll question every week. All right. Just want to talk a little bit. I should have had a graphic for this, and I did, but I didn't like the way it looked, so we're not using it. So we're not going to show you the scores. I'm just going to run through a few of them that matter. NC State over Western Carolina, 38-21. Not as big a blowout as you would have expected. Not a great look for the Wolfpack.
Against Western Carolina.
Yeah, against Western Carolina.
Yeah, and their offensive line, which has a lot of veterans, didn't have a great start. With Tennessee's defensive line, that's where the Vols are going to try to take advantage.
Yeah.
Let's get into, again, we're just looking at future foes here for Tennessee. Kent State lost to Pittsburgh. Oklahoma walloped Temple 51-3. No surprise there. Arkansas blanked Arkansas Pine Bluff 70-0. Miami 41, Florida 17 in Gainesville.
Wow.
Florida still has, before they come to Knoxville, they've got Samford. Okay, that's FCS. If he loses to Samford, he is gone. But Samford, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and UCF. If you lose to A&M and then you lose to UCF after losing to Miami, there's a chance Billy Napier doesn't get on the plane to Knoxville, in my opinion. Your thoughts on the way the Gators opened up yesterday?
Well, I mean, it was they just weren't even in the same class as Miami, and Billy Napier now is 11-15, and he's lost I think 6 times in the swamp. And if y'all noticed on Twitter, Dan Mullen made a post. I won 29 games in 3 years.
Ooh, that's kind of
so that's already. Yeah. So when you're talking about the hot seat, but it's I mean, it was in a way it was sad to watch, but not that sad.
John, that's kind of jerkish that Dan Mullen
I
would
think
do that.
he retweeted Matt Berry from ESPN who shared those stats.
Still.
So they've got to beat A&M in 2 weeks. Florida's bleeding, and it's going to start pouring out if they lose at home to a team that couldn't score against Notre Dame. So Cam Ward's not going to be at A&M. If they can beat Texas A&M in a couple weeks, maybe they start to feel good about themselves and try to beat Mississippi State on the road. But Billy Napier's in big trouble. Tennessee's going to have a big opportunity in that game.
I was just going to say I expected a better performance yesterday. I thought that was one where I thought maybe there's talent on that Florida team. I thought maybe we're overestimating Miami. It's at Florida. Maybe they're going to listen to all this talk about them stinking all off season and come out. Boy, and they just came out flat.
Yeah, and Graham Mertz is now in concussion protocol, the quarterback. So they turned it over to DJ Lagway, the freshman, who gave them a spark. But, I mean, it's just not a good look right now for the Gators.
Next, Alabama beat Western Kentucky. Apparently, Nick Saban left some players behind for all the people saying Alabama was dead. Kentucky, 31-0. That game started about 8 hours late due to weather. But Kentucky, 31-0 over Southern Miss.
Yeah, it was over a 2-hour delay. It was 24-0 at halftime. Yeah. They're going to more of an offense like Missouri. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, they'll face tougher competition, obviously, in the SEC, but Brock Vandagriff is their new quarterback. He's a former 5-star recruit who transferred from Georgia.
For Kentucky, 31-0 over a Southern Miss. I thought that was rather impressive for them. I did not expect – I would not go into that thinking they were going to win that game by 31. Mississippi State beat Eastern Kentucky. Georgia struggled in the first half with Clemson and then annihilated them 34-3.
Wow.
Georgia looks just as scary as they have for the last 3 or 4 years.
They're a behemoth. Yeah. They have either the best roster in the country or they are right there with anybody when it comes to talent.
And here's one thing real quick about Clemson. You talk about a hot seat. You don't imagine Dabo Swinney being the one, but he's going to get heat because they don't take transfers.
Yeah.
And you look at all these schools that are playing well. Miami loaded up on it. Look at what Ole Miss does.
If you're a coach who decides I'm not going to do business as business is being done, then you deserve to be fired. I mean, I don't care what your personal preferences are. If this is the way everybody else is running the program, you either get with that or you're going to get fired. And I don't care how many titles you won. That's just the way the modern game works. Clemson fans are going to run him out of there. UTEP, who Tennessee plays, they lost to Nebraska. Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt jumps on Virginia Tech 17-0. Then they blow it, fall behind, come back from behind, go to overtime, win the game over Virginia Tech, a team that people were saying could be a sleeper to make the to win the ACC and make the playoff. They lose to Vanderbilt, And Josh, it was the first time in 61 games that Vanderbilt had come back from a 7-point deficit in the fourth quarter.
1-score game. and it was Western Kentucky that they came back against.
Yeah.
So they've got a quarterback transfer who's got a little moxie to him. Clark Lee said, hey, we got to make some changes. What we're doing is not working.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that they're going to go win a bunch of games in the SEC, but that's a nice debut. Virginia Tech was getting some sneaky, could they come out of the ACC and make a run at a playoff spot? And Vanderbilt gets them in the first game. And coming back says something about the mentality.
Yeah. Especially after you missed the field goal to win the game regulation, right? And Virginia Tech, their fans traveled. Virginia Tech was favored by 13.5.
I do wonder about Clark Lee. He had a better first year over there than I anticipated 2 years ago. People thought, okay, he's building something. It fell apart last year. So he makes the changes. You go out and you beat Virginia Tech. Again, I don't know that they're going to go out and have a great year, but I do wonder if he's going to be able to at least make them somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
Because, for years
they're not a
they
punchline like they have been with that kind of win.
Yeah. All right. Very good. When we come back, the real season starts on Saturday for Tennessee. Will the defense be better or worse than last year's unit? We'll ask our former Vol defenders to discuss that. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment is brought to you by Safety Systems. If you're in need of a new security system for your home or your business, call VFL JJ Surlis and the team at Safety Systems. They've always taken good care of me, including a new studio that we've built, Safety Systems. You'll find that sticker right there, that sign, that logo, right on the front of wherever I've built it. You'll find that in front of my house. You'll find it in front of businesses all over East Tennessee. Safety Systems. If you need a security system, that's the alpha and the omega. That's who you start with. That's where you finish with. Safety Systems and VFL JJ Surlis. Okay, season gets underway for real against in Charlotte against NC State on Saturday night. Tim Banks' defense has gotten better year over year, all 3 years that he's been here. Last year they ranked third in the SEC in points allowed, behind only Georgia and Alabama, 20.3 points per game. A lot of people talk about the defense not being good last year. Only Alabama and Georgia were better in the one stat that means most, points. They were fourth in the SEC in rush defense, fourth in the SEC in total defense. They fell to middle of the pack, eighth in pass defense, but they were fourth, tied with Alabama, in red zone TD percentage. It was a good defense last year. Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Let's throw it over to our defenders, and Will Overstreet, you're going to handle that discussion with Marlon and Daniel. Go right ahead.
That's right. Thanks, John. So let's talk about that. Do we think the defensive line this year, even though they've got the depth, is going to be a better defensive front than it was last year?
100%. 100%. I think we got good depth. You've got expectations out of guys like James Pierce Jr. You've got guys like Amari Thomas, who's been playing a lot of football, Elijah Simmons. So I would say defensive line-wise is going to be better.
Absolutely, and I think you got big guys on the inside that's going to clog it up, but the rotation this year seems to be that they can get more guys in. And it's going to help having an offense that you only have to play 59 snaps of defense, which they did yesterday. And so you're looking at an average defensive lineman playing 20, 25 snaps. Like, man, that's a perfect game.
Still, the problem for me as a defensive lineman is I don't show up in the stat sheet potentially with only 20 snaps at times, right? I mean, like,
it's going to happen.
There are chances you're not going to show up. All right, so let's talk about that. So then you got your back guys, you got your linebackers and your secondary. Do we think those positions can be better or are going to be better this year?
I think linebacker-wise, we have to be better, right? All we've heard this offseason was how the defense would have been better last year if Kenan Pilley wasn't injured. You had Arian Carter, who stepped up as a freshman, got injured late in the season or beginning of the season, whatever it was. But those guys are back healthy now. So I would say linebacker group, we ought to be better. I would say from a defensive back standpoint, one of the things we've got to shore up is who's playing in what position. I saw a lot of rotations yesterday, a couple guys coming in, early coming in defensive back-wise. I think we've got to shore that up before you go. I would say at least Oklahoma on the road. We need to know who our guys are on the back end.
Absolutely, and that's my one position that I worry about the most. You know, Chattanooga had three guys that had a 22-yard catch, a 19-yard catch, and a 19-yard catch against our secondary. In your running game, your longest run was 10 yards, which isn't a big play. So secondary, I'm worried about. Linebackers, they have to take a step up just because they haven't had the injury bug yet.
The only thing I'm sitting there going is I keep hearing about the linebackers, but I don't see it in the stat sheet or the play. Like, I don't see, like, it's just another body. So I don't see guys making tackles for loss at linebackers or affecting the play and the coverage. So I'm still waiting for that to say, do you have a star back there? Because you keep hearing, yes, this guy's going to be great. But I'm not looking at an Al Wilson right now in any of this. So that's where you still have to take a step. So I think maybe there's some talent there to get better, but it's still a wait and see, I think, with this group right now.
I think I heard on the radio earlier this past week when they referenced Gerard Mayo and Arion Carter, and I got excited. Gerard Mayo was a heck of a player. He was the captain of the defense. You knew he was going to be there. If he can replicate that, that's a big deal. But I think we've got to have that linebacking group, especially with a young secondary, be able to step up and make plays.
Yeah. So anyways, John, that's what we've got so far. We're continuing to look forward, but there's some opportunities for this defense to get better, but there's still a lot of question marks in that back half of the defense.
Excellent, guys. Always my favorite segment of the show when I don't have to do anything. When we come back, it's time to play Will They or Won't They? You remember these? We'll stand our guys out like they're the Temptations, line them up and ask them questions about the Tennessee-NC State game. That is next, and we've still got the Cavaliers line to come. Come on back on the Sports Horse. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. You see their website, ourgameroom.com. Football season is here. That means basketball's behind it, baseball. So you got months and months and months of sports. Folks, watch it in style. Get you some home theater seats from Games and Things. If you're looking at better seating in your entertainment room, your media room, your game room, you got to start at Games and Things. They have the best selection of home theater seats all over East Tennessee. Best prices. And let me tell you, the selection is huge. I've been in there. It'll take you a couple hours just to put your rump in all those seats and see which one feels best to you. Ourgameroom.com, you don't get the satisfaction of trying out all the seats, but you can learn what they're carrying. Games and Things, because life should be fun. All right, it's time for us to play Will They or Won't They? We've been doing this the last few years. I always enjoy it. We got the five of us, the media guys up here. And over, we got the VFLs lined up like the Temptations over there. They're ready with their thumbs to tell us whether or not something will or won't happen. So let's come back to me. We're just going to play a little tennis here, ping pong back and forth. Here's your first question. Quarterback Grayson McCall transferred from Coastal Carolina to NC State with more than 10,000 passing yards under his belt. He's already got 10,000 passing yards in his career as he starts his year at NC State. He threw for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns in their opener versus Western Carolina. Will Grayson McCall throw for 300 yards versus Tennessee? No. Nobody thinks so. All right, question. No, we got no disagreement over there, so I'll just throw this out there. Does that have more to do with your belief in the defensive line than it does your belief in the secondary?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I expected. Okay. Bob Hodge, I'll start with you. Do you agree he's not going to go for 300 against the Vols?
No, I disagree. I think he will because they're going to be behind and they're going to throw a lot. So he'll get 300. That doesn't mean that much.
Okay, very good. Next question. Wolfpack receiver Kevin Concepcion had 10 touchdown catches in his first season a year ago. He scored 3 more against Western Carolina. The guy's a touchdown machine. Will this 5'11", 187-pound Charlotte native going home score twice against Tennessee on Saturday? No, yes. Well, of course, the Joy Boys say no. All right, I know why they're saying no. Let me ask Will and Marlon why you say yes, he will get 2 touchdowns. Back to the secondary?
Yeah, I think you've got a guy that has shown he's been able to make some plays. I think we're not gonna hold him out to 0. So the more likely guy that's gonna make their plays is gonna be not on the ground, but the small, wide, fast, wide receiver that can make a guy miss.
All right.
Gets one early, gets another one late when the ball game's out of hand.
Okay, there we go.
And they like to line him up at several different positions, too. And I tell you, he made one play where he caught a ball in the middle and made 2 or 3 people miss and scored. So, I mean, he was really impressive watching them. But it's against Western Carolina.
Do you agree or disagree that he'll get 2 scores against the Vols?
I think he can get 2 against
Can
Tennessee.
or will?
I think he
Will's
will.
the question.
I
There
think
you
he
go.
will.
Have to put a gun to your head to make you answer. All right, here we go. Dave Doran, who UT once talked to after the Schiano uprising, he's known for his defense, but State gave up 361 yards, including 120 on the ground, to the Catamounts of Western Carolina. Will Tennessee go over 200 yards rushing on Saturday versus NC State? We got a yes. We got all yeses. There's no disagreement over there. You're all feeling pretty okay. We'll let the happy guys. You just don't think there's any way they can slow Tennessee's run game?
I had an opportunity to watch some of that game, and I just what we have up front with the way Dylan's playing and the continuity, them having to worry about our offense of throwing the ball downfield. We talked about earlier. It's going to open up some holes in the middle, and I think we're going to get a lot of yards running.
They didn't out physical the team they played, and that was a little bit surprising. So I mean, when you're talking about on that level, it wasn't just playing down. It didn't look like you had the athletes that were necessarily a high step above.
I tell you this too, their middle linebacker went out early with a targeting penalty. I think he's the guy on their defense. He went out early.
Yeah, I think the threat of Nico, the performance of the wide receivers last week is going to open up more holes this week for the running back.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. Josh, do you agree or disagree Tennessee's going to go over 200 yards rushing?
Can't fade the VFLs here, can I? I believe in Tennessee's run game. Dylan Sampson could have a home run play, so I'll go over.
Okay, very good. Last one. NC State gave up only 24 sacks all last season. They gave up 1 versus Western Carolina. Will Tennessee's defensive line record 2 sacks on Saturday? Everybody says yes. Only got 1 against Chattanooga.
2. Jay Pierce is going to have 2.
Okay.
There we go.
So he's going to. Will there be cause for concern if Tennessee doesn't record some sacks against NC State?
Yes.
You'll be 2 games in, and your defensive line won't have lived up to the hype.
Maybe. It depends. Like, if you have interceptions but no sacks,
How are they throwing the game too? Like, is it a short passing game?
Yeah.
If you're seeing dropbacks and you're not getting to them, then yeah, that becomes a part where you say,
Hey guys, we got the number 1 draft pick on our team right now at defensive end. He's got to go get it. We got to get sacks.
There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you, Marlon.
Don't worry. He's ready.
Jimmy, will Tennessee's defensive line record 2 sacks?
Yes, I think they will. I don't think they'll implement the same game plan as Chattanooga, which is to get it out of your hand, throw it quick, don't take a sack. I also think Tennessee will get a lead. It'll force NC State to throw more, and I think Tennessee will get at least 2 sacks.
Yeah, and Grayson McCall he was a little out of sync in the opener. It'll be interesting to see if he's more on target against Tennessee.
Okay, very good. When we come back, Chuck will be delivering the first Cavaleris line of the season. We're going to play a little Beat the House. We change the rules every year. We changed them again. I changed them early this morning. So we'll explain the rules, and we'll play our first round, and we'll talk quite a bit about Tennessee, NC State next on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Pipe Wrench. It has been just a nutty last couple of weeks, and I just wonder if this crazy heat wave has finished off your AC unit. If it has, give Pipe Wrench a call. Not only will they install and provide routine maintenance, but when you buy a York or other major AC brand from them, you can finance the thing at 0% interest. PipeWrench.com to learn more. Drain cleaning, plumbing, heating, cooling. You need it, they do it. Pipe Wrench Home Services. Check them out this week. Okay, it's time for live from the Chattanooga Casino. We haven't used this open in a couple of years. It's been brought back and changed just a tad. It's time for Beat the House, featuring the Cavaleris line. And like I said a minute ago, we always change up the rules a little just to keep it interesting. We're doing that again today. And the way we're going to do it is Chuck's going to give us a line for the Tennessee game. His job is to try and split our group. So it's not about matching what Vegas is going to say or what DraftKings is already saying. He's trying to split this group. That's how you grade him. If we all go in different directions, he's done a good job. If we don't, failure. It's a tough ask. I want to make that clear. What I'm asking him to do is tough, to split this group of cynics. So we each will bet against his spread, and we got $500 mythical dollars to wager. But in what I call the Daniel Hood rule, no one can wager more than half their money until October. I got to keep all of you in it at least until October, so nobody can go all in. All right. So let's go ahead and start. Chuck, setting the line for Tennessee versus NC State Saturday night in Charlotte.
Yeah, see, John, to me, that's like you come up with a location, a supposedly neutral site game. Will that favor the Vols, or does it favor NC State playing in their home state? I still lean towards Tennessee. Boy, I wish this game was in Neyland Stadium, but it's not. and it's the Mayo Bowl or whatever during the regular
The
season.
Duke's Mayo Classic.
Yeah,
I think is
Mayo
what they're calling this
Classic.
thing.
So I hope the winning coach doesn't get drenched in mayonnaise like they do in the real bowl game. With this, I'm looking you'll find the Vegas line 5.5, 6.5. I think it's going to go up. I've got Tennessee minus 9.5.
No, I hear groans and exhales over here. That's going to be a tough one for everybody to go with. That's excellent, Chuck.
Well, thank you, John.
Nice job. All right. And we'll let you wheel your board out of the way and join the rest of the crew over there at the side table. 9.5 is his line. We'll just kind of go around here and start this way and finish up over there. Jimmy, congratulations. You get to go first. Tennessee by 9.5.
I'll take Tennessee and put 100.
All right. UT, $100 for Jimmy Himes. Josh Ward.
So having to pick early is tough. I think this is going to go Tennessee's way. I'm going to try to get out ahead early. I think Tennessee's going to win the football game, but get to work with less than 10. I'll go NC State, 100.
Okay.
Whoa.
NCSU, Josh with $100. I'm taking UT, and I'll go 100. Marlon.
I'm going to go Tennessee. Give me 150.
Okay. UT minus or with 150 for Marlon. All right, Bob Hodge.
I'm going to go Tennessee, 200.
Oh. Now this is the guy, just to remind you folks, this is Mr. They're going to be 8-4, gray skies are above us all off season.
At least it's gray skies and not green uniforms.
The Chattanooga game meant a lot to you, obviously.
No, actually
We'll
the
get to
Western
it.
Carolina game meant a lot.
Okay, all right, very good. Daniel Hood.
I'll take Tennessee for 250.
The absolute maximum. There you go. All right. Sterling Hinton.
I'm going Tennessee 200, baby. Tennessee 200.
We're not really splitting the group here. All right, Will Overstreet.
Tennessee 100.
Tennessee 100. Josh, you are the only guy to take NC State. What's it feel like to be a loser?
That's why they call me Wolfpack Josh.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. You were the Western Carolina game influenced you more. Kind of goes back to what Will was talking about. If you go out and blow doors on one of these teams, how much can you take from it? But if you don't look good against one of these teams.
Exactly. And I watched just a little bit of that game, and I didn't think either side of the ball on the lines looked good for North Carolina State. So to me, that's where Tennessee has its advantage. If you play clean, like you did against Chattanooga, don't forget guys running wide open and huge holes. If you play a clean game, no penalties, few turnovers, I think you beat them by 10 points.
The NC State thing, the only thing I'm wondering about is you go back, Tennessee went 9-4 this year, that they opened with Appy State. Didn't look good. You should have pushed them all over. You didn't. It was tight. But you went on to win 9 games that year. I just wonder if that was a bad opener. Are we reading too much into the fact that they didn't dominate Western? I guess that's the problem with any of these openers. You don't know how much stock to put in any of them.
You're right about that, but the fact that they struggle at the line of scrimmage is what has persuaded me. You should have handled them at the line. You didn't. Tennessee at the line of scrimmage should be a lot better than Western Carolina.
Yeah, he said something that time when he said the Western Carolina deal kind of gave him pause to like, all right, we should be okay. I think the way the week works is you got to go back, you got to clean up all your mistakes. All right, here's how we struggled. But then also you got to prepare for Tennessee's offense and Nico and what they look like on Saturday. That's the reason why I say that 9.5, it's a push, but at the same time, it's like they got a lot they got to clean up and got to prepare for before that next week.
Well, let me ask you this, just very quickly. We can just give me the number. Will Overstreet, how many points is Tennessee going to score? Your opinion?
I'd say they're going to score 42.
Okay, over 40. Sterling.
I was thinking 42 is my exact number.
Daniel?
I was thinking 45.
Chuck?
I was going to think 45.
Are we all going to say over 40?
No.
Yes.
Okay, you will.
38.
38. Josh, you wouldn't because you're taking NC State.
35 to 26.
Okay.
It doesn't sound so good.
Very good. All right. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate the sponsors for backing us up. WATE's crew for getting it all right every week. Also want to invite you to watch the Saturday kickoff next Saturday at 11 right here on Channel 6. Ignore your grid guides. Watch it. And then thanks to you, most of all. We're not here for season 22 if not for you supporting us and our sponsors. Thank you. See you next week.